Hello, and welcome back to the Credible Business Series. Today we're here with Pete Coughlin. Hi, Pete. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for coming on. And you're the owner of Coughlin Painting. Is that correct?
I am, yes.
We met Pete at the Painters Academy a couple months ago, and Pete has a very cool story and impressive track record. Coughlin Painting has been in business for 17 years. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going on our 18th year this year.
That longevity is not something you hear about all the time these days, so that's really cool. And then more impressive is that the business has grown 383% in the last 4 years alone. So I'm really excited to talk to you about how that happened. But first, just want to learn a little bit more about the company. So let's go ahead and get started. So you've been running the business for 17 years. What would you attribute to keeping you in business that long? If you could say one thing.
First, you move on faith. If you're going for one word, it would be faith. But as you keep going, you just try and do a good job for everybody. And I'm OCD, and I try and paint everything as if it was my own home. And, you get a good reputation that way. And early on throughout, it's, referrals and repeat customers. So that's really kept us going. We're in New Hampshire. So I say faith because when you first start out, it's easy in the summer because there's more demand than there is painters to get it done. But as the winters come, that's when it's really the rubber meets the road to see how good you're doing. That's
wow. That's a very, very seasonal place. So I can imagine, but that's a great answer, Faith, because I know running a business, I've run a business for the last 8 years, and faith is, I think, extremely important, and there are ups and downs for sure. So
it's a risk and nothing's guaranteed. That's for sure.
No. And the other thing that you said, which I shouldn't have limited you to one word, but it was the integrity, doing what you say you're going to do. I feel like that is probably even above anything.
It is. Yeah. We'll it's all about doing right by the customer. And, if it doesn't go the way we think it does, and, there's some complications, always just make it right with the customer so they don't have to worry. If we don't make out on the job, we don't make out on the job. We hopefully learn for the next one. But their experience should be the same regardless. And when we're done, they should be happy. And if they're not, we want to know.
I've been in the property management business for 8 years, so that's very nice to hear. I've dealt with a lot of painters that don't feel that way, so I could see why that would be very much valued amongst customers. Once you find someone like that, you want to keep using them for sure.
That's the goal. We want to be your painters for life.
Yeah, exactly. In the earliest years, what was the hardest part? Like, as far as starting the business went? I'm sure, well, you just mentioned one thing is that it's very seasonal. So I could imagine in the beginning that was hard.
That is hard, yeah. You can stay busy in the summer. I feel like if you can't, you shouldn't be a painter in this area. That's one thing. But as you go, the challenge is having a life, because it's capacity, how much you can get done. You do a good job and then word spreads, and then all of a sudden you're working 7 days a week just trying to stay ahead of it all, and it gets overwhelming. That's one of the challenges when you're small.
Good problem to have, but only for so long. I could imagine that you get burned out.
It's like work-life balance. It's like, I kind of always put the customer's needs before my own, or before like being a good husband sometimes. And so I'm lucky I have a great partner that has stuck with me, and so I'm grateful for that. But
I can see that's very labor intensive too. I don't know. I've never run a painting business, but I can only imagine.
Very labor intensive. And that's one of the reasons I knew I had to grow, because, I've got a bad hip and some health issues there. And it's like, how long can I continue to do this? You see old painters that come into the paint store and it's like, if I don't learn to be a business owner, I'm going to be, and nothing against that. And I love doing the work and being a craftsman, but there's you're either a great craftsman, which I think I am, because I care, but then that's totally different from being a business owner. It's a different skill set. So I've really learned to be a good business owner, and then still have systems in place so you can keep up that craftsmanship. That's where we've done well.
And again, I agree. There's nothing negative to be said about those hardworking people, but that is, I think, what makes the difference between somebody that caps out at a certain spot. It's as much as your body will physically allow, and then when you get older, that gets smaller and smaller, and then the people that are able to delegate and hire and train and relinquish the control of doing it all themselves are the ones that are able to see a little bit more fruit or at least fruit that they didn't have to physically work for, physically,
Yeah, it is. It's control. You gotta give up control. You can't have the mindset, and I did for a long time. Like, if it has to be done right, I have to do it, and I'm the only one that can do this correctly, and I better check this. And no one else can grow when you do that, but also you can't grow a business that way. You have to delegate and give people room to grow and improve. And if you don't, you're stuck, I feel like.
I would imagine your wife really appreciates that you figured out how to do that too.
Yeah, she has. So we have more time together. And my wife's from Jamaica, so we go down there and visit the family. And so I've been able to run the business from down there to a point. If you have good people in place, which I do, and I'm grateful for that. And it gives you some freedom, which is nice.
Truly the lottery. That's the lottery, is being able to do That's the stuff, not to get too deep, but at the end of your life, you're going to think back and wish you did more of, not wished you painted more houses yourself.
I wish I worked more Saturdays. No one's saying that.
No, exactly. And so many people, when they're in the grind, can't see the forest through the trees when it comes to that. But I feel like a lot of people realize that when it's too late. So that's really cool to hear. And that's what we're really passionate about. So I love to hear that. And my next question is, in your industry, what separates companies that last from the ones that disappear? And it might tie into what we already spoke about, but what do you think?
I think you have to really put the customer's interest first. And that's, it comes down to quality and standing behind your work. And you mentioned integrity. If you're just out there trying to make the top dollar or just not worried about the outcome, and you're not going to last. And so, we stand behind our work. We give assurances, satisfaction guarantees, and then workmanship warranties on our work. And so, if something goes wrong, we'll be here. I think that's a big part of it, and you got to care.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that. Most people have used a tradesman or a painter at some point in their life, and I can definitely attest to that from personal experience, that it's nothing worse than someone just feeling like it's a money grab about that end result or about if you're satisfied with it. And I think that's another thing. It's like, as a business owner, can you relinquish control of doing the job yourself? Can you hire people? Also, instead of being right, do you have the personality to keep customers happy and maintain relationships? Because not everyone does. That's not a given. So.
Yeah, no, I'll be the first one to make amends, or you try, and I like to keep people happy, and that's my goal. It's like the reputation. It's like, we no matter what, we want you to have a good experience with using our company, and if you don't, I want to know about it so we can make it right.
I think people feel that, and then when the next time they need paint, they call you. So that's awesome. So you've grown 383%. Is that correct?
It is correct. Yes. Yep.
The last 4 years. So what changed? There had to have been something that changed if you went.
Putting systems in place and not having limiting thinking. I used to think in our area, there's a real labor shortage for the trades. And so, I used to think, well, nobody wants to work, is what I would say. Nobody wants to work. Well, that's not true. I should have said, he put zero effort and zero money into finding anyone because he doesn't have a system. So we put in some systems in place. One was recruitment, and we have checks and balances for that, multiple interviews. We're now going to institute a personality test, but we do skills tests, background checks. And so it's multifaceted, so we can weed out people that aren't going to make it. They usually don't make it through that process. That was one, and a major one. And then certainly having the systems in place once you have these people in more workforce is, having crew leaders that have a system for, making sure jobs are done right and check off sheets and every facet, just elevating our level of professionalism. From the time you call us on the phone, I'll get Jane in the office, who's great, that takes the customer's calls and does the scheduling, and from that point, straight through the process to when we close out the job and making sure you're 100% satisfied and hopefully getting a raving review on Google or another platform.
That's amazing. I have mad respect for that, because if there's one thing that I learned in being in property management for 8 years is that when it comes to painting a house, there's so much room for miscommunication and error if you're not thorough. I could just see those systems really setting you free in all the place. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, detailed scopes of work where it's like, I always say to my customer, there should be no surprises. When we're in here, you know what we're going to do, you know what we're not going to do. And not that it couldn't change, but at least we stay on the same page throughout. And, if there's any surprises, it would be in the beginning before we ever set foot in your house, and we can take care of it then. So we're all just very clear. That's one thing I'm big on. And I think it helps, and people appreciate that. Nobody wants to hear towards the end of the day, hey, it's going to be more money than we thought, or something like that. No. If we went over budget on our side, it's usually because we're doing a better job than we sort of planned on. It's the prep work, and if that happens, we still give you the same high level. We eat that, and hopefully we learn for the next time. That's how I roll with that.
That's great to hear. I feel like there's so many tradesmen out there that their method for earning business, and I doubt they've been in business for 17 years and grown 383% in the last 4, but their method is to bid lower than everyone and then change it as they go. And that is so frustrating from personal experience. So that's I think you can find that maybe more in the commercial realm or whatever. They should, I'm totally honest. I'm honest with my clients and my employees, and I expect the same thing back, and it's so much easier that way. I go to bed at night sleeping well, knowing I did right by everybody and the best the best job we can do, and it's a good feeling that way, and that's really the only way I can do it. And your customers go to bed at night going, if I need paint again, I'm going to call Pete, because they're not pissed off.
Right.
So was there something that happened or something you got fed up with that was the catalyst for the change 4 years ago?
You don't know what you don't know. And so I think, anyone else that was in my shoes is finding a mentor or coaching, and, it's like you set goals. I was never a great goal setter, and that's probably part of it. If you can stay at this level, and if you don't change anything, you don't have a goal to go bigger. But if you set that goal, and then, the stars will align, I feel like, and these opportunities will arise where, I could do this, and I could grow this way, or if I put this system in place, or if I use this training, I wish I had done it years sooner. But the only thing you do is work on today, which, what they say about the oak tree and all that. It's like, you can't worry about the past. You just, what do you want to change, and just make moves to change it.
Well, we do the best we have with what we've got, and then when we've got more, we do the best we have with that, and that's just life. But that's awesome. Okay, what do you think makes Coughlin Painting credible in your market? What are you known for? What do people say about you? What do you think sets you apart?
Well, in our market, we have won the best painter in our market is the Upper Valley. We've been the best painter in the Upper Valley from one survey, best of the best, the last 2 years running. So we're looking for 3 years this year, so that's always nice. I feel like this company kind of takes on my personality, which is just doing right by people and doing a good job. We're certainly not the cheapest company out there, but we're there when we say we're going to be there, whether it's the first appointment where you're meeting me, or when the crew comes out. And if not, it's communication. If something throws a wrench in it, whether it's, we do more interiors. That's really our specialty. That's one thing that's helped us. Not everyone is an interior specialist. They like to go outside. I've always loved interiors. There's more details. I'm OCD, so I think that's helped us over the years to stay busy and grow. It is focusing on interiors. Just doing a great job for people, and like you say, if there is an issue, you can call us up and we'll come back. We don't not answer the phone, or once we get the check and we're out of there and never see us again. That's hopefully not the case. We want to come back, and we're not going anywhere. So it's like, I grew up in this community, so it's pretty tight knit, and so that helps. The longer you're doing it, the more relationships I've built, and so it just all kind of grows. So we get a lot of great feedback from the community and from our clients.
What is your target market? What's your average customer situation?
Our bread and butter is interior residential repaints. And our favorite ones of those are when, someone buys a house and before they move in, there's no furniture. But that's not always the case. The one disadvantage with those is you don't really get to know your customer very well. It's a little more challenging to do occupied homes, but we do that often as well. And that's one thing, when you are in someone's home, there's certainly a high level of trust there, but we try and have an attitude where we just try and be as least inconvenience to people as possible to get the work done. And so, whatever we can do to stay out of your way or coordinate and sequence events to limit our interference with your daily life, that's what we try and do. That's really our favorite projects. Not that we don't do new construction or renovations. We we do, and we do exteriors as well, but that's in our area. It's a short season for that. It fills up very quickly, and we try and save those projects because we do the same, high quality job we do inside, we do it outside. And so it takes a little more time, and it's all about the prep work inside, but even more so outside. Just, it should look good, whoever paints your house, but how long will it last? The elements are pretty tough in this area. And so we do the best we can there, but we save those spots more for our interior clients. When they need the outside of their house done, we want to be the ones to do it and not have them call another painter.
Yeah, it's cool too. I could see how it would set you apart because I'm in a industry that has dealt with a lot of painters. The majority of the ones I've come into contact with, understandably, would prefer to work in completely vacant houses because it's just obviously you can put you don't even need your headphones. You can blast your music, you can order food. You don't have to deal with the resident. And so I could see you guys being so good at that and being so willing to do that, being huge for your business because, like you said, you build the relationship. When I hire someone to do work in my house, if they make me feel like I'm not walking on eggshells or dealing with a nuisance in my house, I would definitely call them back. You know what I mean? If you're not having to stop your life for the people that are there, that's very valuable.
Right. I can tell you another thing is that we have some ladies on the crew. 25% of our workforce is women. So when you are in someone's home, sometimes it's, the wife's home alone or working from home or something. So having just the female presence there, it just sets some people at ease. And I've got great people, so I'm very fortunate there.
Absolutely.
But it's a nicer dynamic, I feel like.
Yeah, that's refreshing. It's not something you'd expect either. It's a cool thing to know.
Yeah, industry standard, I think, is 3% women in the painting industry, which hopefully it's more than that. So I feel like we might be an anomaly there.
I would appreciate that. I think that's really cool. Right. What's one mistake you see other contractors or painters make that you guys actively build into your training to avoid?
The one we see the most often is just attention to detail. And whether it's, I don't like to put any other painters down or what. And sometimes it's the homeowners painting the house themselves. You don't know who. That's one thing with repaints. You see a lot of things done incorrectly. And, a lot of times the most obvious one is cut lines. It's just not doing the proper prep. We go by industry standards. So, we fix the walls. A lot of times people don't know half of what we fixed. If they're not there, when you're done, you just know it's painted. And that's what a lot of homeowners just think, well, you're changing the colors or you're just painting the walls. There's so much more that goes into it than that. It's all about the prep work. Fixing any holes, obviously, cracks and drywall, and we're really good at fixing those drywall issues. I would say that's probably the most one that's obvious. And another one, I don't know if it's a mistake, but you can get away with a lot in painting. When you use us, like whatever it says here on the scope of work, like we're giving you 2 coats if it says 2 coats, and that's industry standard 2 coats. Sometimes it's 3 depending on color changes, but we're not skimping on any of that, where it's, hey, can we get away with 1 coat or, it's not good business.
When I bought my first house, I was like 25 and so broke, and I decided to paint the entire interior by myself. And my husband had a painting business at one point, and when he met me and came over and looked around, he was like, who? Painted so bad, but it was funny because when I was painting it, there's so many things you don't think of beforehand, like the drywall being different textures and different spots, especially the house is 1975. So it's been painted a trillion times. I mean, so I can only imagine the amount of corners people cut when they feel like they can get away with it. And I've seen different levels of paint jobs. It is not all the same. It is, you get what you pay for.
You do get what you pay for. I mean, there's different levels of price sometimes. Oh, why is yours so much? And then, well, can I, what are they offering you? And I know it's not going to be as good as what we do. I just, there's no way.
Oh yeah. You're like, okay, well, have fun with that. You can call me afterward when you see the end result. So,
right.
Yeah. If someone is hiring a painting company, what would you recommend that they look for, or questions that they should ask to vet them, or what would you recommend to somebody like maybe in a different area, or they were trying to find a painter for a big job?
What's their background? Do they have good reviews? Their reputation? Is there licensing in New Hampshire and Vermont? We work in Vermont as well. There's no licensing for painting, and I'm not sure why, but there is a lead certifications, and we're certified in both states for that, which is big. If your house is pre-1978, you should make sure they're lead certified, just so they're protecting you and hopefully themselves. They should give you a written scope of work with their proposal. Don't pay them everything up front, I would say, if you choose that person, but we're still talking about choosing them.
Yes.
Do they ask you to purchase the paint. A professional should never be asking the homeowner to purchase the paint. You might think you can save some money doing it, but it's a hassle. If the painters need paint, they should go get it. They should be able to have credit with the paint store or have a means to buy it. That's a big red flag for me.
From personal experience, one time I hired somebody to paint my patio. They told me to buy the paint. I bought the paint. And then when it started peeling, they said I bought the wrong paint. Even though I bought the paint they told me to buy. So yeah, that's a good red flag for sure.
Now, sometimes homeowners already have the paint and it's rare for us, but like we can incorporate that. But if we're giving you interiors, we do a 5-year warranty on it. Like we want to give you the best paint. Usually it's Benjamin Moore Aura is what we use for that. And we want to give you the best paint so you have the longest lasting job and it saves you money in the long run. I think another one would be, have they won any awards? That's always nice, to win those things. And do they have a crew that will come in? Do they answer the phone when you call? That would be another one. If the crew coming in, are they doing the work themselves? Are they subbing it out? We have W-2 employees that we use.
Wow.
Everyone is an employee of the company. We don't sub any work out. Who's in your home. They've been vetted. That's another one. Do they do background checks? I mean, there's quite a few things. We actually have a list. I don't have it right here with me, but we have a list that can help homeowners choose. And it just goes through these things. You can check them off and ask other painting contractors when they're trying to decide on who to use, and hopefully it's us because we know we're going to give them the best job and take care of them. And I feel bad if they use somebody else and it goes south because it means I didn't do a good job on not convincing them but just showing them why we're the better option. And so if I don't do that and they get a bad experience, I do feel bad for them, so it's
sometimes people have to have the cheaper option once to learn their lesson though, so don't take too much responsibility for that.
I don't lose sleep over it at night, but it and not every company's for every person. And if they're really budget conscious, I get that as well. We try and make things work, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And other companies can do a good job too, and hopefully that's the case. But you hear of the stories, and that when you use smaller companies, sometimes they don't have the capacity, or in this area, you're getting your exteriors done. Sometimes you have to wait, for the next season. And I've heard it more often than I should. I feel like where it's, how we waited for our painter already for 1.5 years. And then he says he's retiring, or he's not doing exteriors, or he moved. And so that's one of our advantages is that when you contract with us, when we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. We don't like to overpromise. So like this year, if you want an exterior done right now, we don't really have the capacity to do that. And so I'd let you know, it probably won't be this year. I can't promise you that it would be next year, more than likely. And just being upfront and honest.
I feel like we could probably have an entire hour-long conversation about not overpromising and under-delivering, because I think that is just probably what gets so many businesses into trouble. That's what gets me angry.
Can't say I didn't do it in the past. I'm an optimist. And so just, I think I can get there, and
you
it's
learn,
a much easier conversation to be like, I'm going to try. I'm not going to promise it. Like that's probably next year, but maybe that,
Yes,
It's a lot easier phone call in the fall if you have room where it's, hey, we have a slot open.
A lot of business owners that do well are innately people pleasers, and we all have a journey that we have to go through to learn too. I know a lot of times it's from a well-meaning place, but I think that's what a lot of business owners end up learning not to do for sure, because it really sets you up to just piss people off rather than make them happy.
Yeah, you certainly learn as you go, and we try to learn from every job. I think that's one thing that sets us apart too. Even if we do it well, it's like, can we have done something more efficiently? There's so many steps. What if we had done that way? Would that have been better? And so we do review every job, and and I'm always sort of critiquing our practices and like trying to improve.
I think it's either you put the effort there or you put the effort into putting out fires. So I feel like that's so cool. When you learn how to be proactive and learn from each mistake and to be that thorough, then you spend all that time on the front end rather than on the back end cleaning up your mess because you were trying to just get through it. So it's such a better way to, once you learn that in life, it's just really much better way to run a business for sure.
Yeah, you try and stay ahead of it. We're all human, and I get that. I give people grace in that regard. How do we not make this mistake again? Or
that's all you can ask for. Being, like I said, I'm in an industry that uses painters a lot. And after talking to you, I wish you guys were local to us in Palm Beach County because you guys sound wonderful to work with. I don't know that I've even met a painter that has W-2 employees in our area.
Really?
That's just a level of taking responsibility that you don't see, because it really is like, that's the act of taking responsibility for your employees, because it's so easy to pass the buck when you have 1099 people working for you. It's you're subbing the sub, and the sub is subbing that sub, and it's
what can go wrong? I like having control, but it's a level of commitment I have then to my employees, because half the battle in this area is finding good people, and then the other half is keeping them busy, and that's what I do. A lot of them have families and mouths to feed and bills to pay, and I don't take that lightly either. So it's my job to, once you come on board, is I don't lay anybody off. That's the last thing I want to do. Is so we work hard to stay busy, and then you just keep growing that way with good people. And it's much easier to deliver a good product because your people are good. So it makes my job much easier, really. And I get phone calls from the clients. I've gotten 2 this week, and you think, oh gosh, the client wants to talk to me. Okay, what's going on? And it was praise from my people, and it was like so. I want to give them a tip. Like, I don't want to offend them. Is this, that's never expected, but it's awful nice when they want to do that, and the other one was older couple, and just telling me how great it was to have the crew in their home, and how they get to know them, and they really enjoyed having them. And can I get that in writing? I need that in writing.
Oh my God, how nice it is to hear. But could you please, I'll send you the link.
That'll probably never make it on Google because they're not tech savvy, but it's just nice to hear. And so, and I share all that with my people. So, showing appreciation, I think, is big and makes them want to work even harder.
You should be very proud. It's so cool to hear. Like I said, the series is new. I'm not going to have such a firsthand experience of all the industries that we talk to, but this one, I definitely know what painting companies can be. I've seen a lot. It's very rare to hear what you're saying.
Maybe as an industry we're looked down on sometimes or whatever, but I don't know.
It's not. I could never do it.
I don't know, look down on, but
there's a lot of
reputation isn't always great,
Yeah, a lot of scammers.
It doesn't take much to be a painter, to call yourself a painter, right? I mean, you need a pail and a brush and a ladder, and it's like, I can paint your house. The barrier to entry is pretty small.
That's what a lot of people will do if they don't have, the skill set to make money like elsewhere, because it's mostly labor. But like I said, I tried to paint my whole house, and I consider myself, a pretty intelligent person. And I do think it takes quite the skill set to paint well. But the point is that it's way beyond just painting. There's so much to it, and being that it's an industry that's business to customer too, that's a lot harder. Even on like the painter, there's a lot more complaints. You're dealing with a different kind of customer. When it's business to business, there's a different style of communication, but with how many steps and boxes you have to check as a painter to do a good job, there's just, like I said, so much room for error. And the customer doesn't understand because they're not necessarily running a business all the time that's anything like it. So it's just a lot more opportunity for complaints. So when you can do it the way that you're doing it, and at the scale that you're doing it, and doing a good job to the point where you're no longer, at least for me, there was a point when running the business in the beginning where I was afraid to answer the phone when people called because I didn't know what it was going to be, good or bad. But when you start to assume it's going to be good, you're doing a good job. So
I know. I don't want to answer that call right now.
We're like, please God, please. But I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
I did as well. Megan, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And where can people find you if they are looking for a painting company? Is it Vermont and New Hampshire?
Vermont, New Hampshire. We're in the Upper Valley, which is halfway down the state. We're like central New Hampshire on the west side, right next to Vermont. And we go into Vermont as well.
Well, thank you so much again. That was really fun.
Thank you. Great to talk with you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bye.